The sky turned black, not from smoke or fire, but from spores, living, breathing corruption that neither man nor machine could resist. The desert was the first place to change. At first, it seemed like a miracle. What had been a wasteland of cracked earth and burning winds sprouted new growth. Green tendrils curling upward from a single fleshy stalk that had erupted from beneath the sands. Scientists argued about whether it was plant or animal. The soldiers who first stumbled on it only called it one thing: unnatural. It grew fast, too fast. Within days, the stalk became a tower, a pulsating column of flesh and sinew that reached hundreds of meters into the air. Its surface shifted, like muscle moving beneath a thin membrane, and at its crown, a yawning orifice opened and closed with steady rhythm. It was breathing, pumping, spreading, and then came the spores. At first, they shimmered in the air like dust motes caught in sunlight, so faint you could miss them. But as the hours passed, the sky darkened. What looked like pollen clouds were expelled in massive bursts, blanketing the horizon. Helicopter rotors choked, filters clogged. Men inside gas masks stumbled as their oxygen dwindled. Machines coughed smoke from exhausts before going silent. The spores weren't just alive. They were hungry. Colonel Harris was one of the first to order a direct strike. "It's an infection," he said over the radio. His voice strained against static. "Burn it before it spreads." Jets screamed overhead, dropping payloads that should have torn the thing apart. Explosions rolled across the sand, scorching the biostructure in flame and fury. For a brief moment, it sagged, its fleshy walls trembling. Soldiers cheered. But then the fire cleared, and the tower flexed, the wounds closing like living skin. The next spore burst was larger than any before. It rolled across the battlefield in waves, a suffocating fog that seeped into lungs, vents, and circuits alike. Soldiers collapsed where they stood. Machines froze mid-step, and those who survived swore they could hear whispers in the air. Hissing, clicking, a language not meant for human ears. By the third day, the desert was unrecognizable. The sand had turned black and glossy, hardened into a resin-like crust. Jagged ridges of bone and cartilage jutted upward, twisting together like ribs forming a cage. The tower had grown thicker, wider, branching out into dozens of smaller stalks that pumped in unison. The air shimmered with haze. Birds fell from the sky. Satellites orbiting overhead captured the change. The atmosphere itself was shifting. Not just poison, transformation. In the control center buried beneath Colorado mountains, Dr. Elena Ruiz watched the feeds with trembling hands. "It's altering the chemical balance," she said to the generals gathered around her. "Oxygen levels are dropping. Carbon dioxide is rising. And there's something else, something in the spores that's replacing nitrogen. If it keeps going—" She stopped, unable to finish. General Macklin slammed a fist on the table. "How long until we suffocate?" Elena's eyes darted to the graphs on her screen. "Weeks, maybe days. It depends how many more of those things there are. Because there wasn't just one anymore." Scouts reported more eruptions across continents. One rose in the jungles of Brazil, entwining itself around ancient trees until the forest floor was drowned in shadow. Another burst from beneath the ruins of Shanghai, its fleshy limbs wrapping around broken skyscrapers like a parasite claiming its host. In Europe, spores rained down like ash, clogging rivers, seeping into cathedrals, filling every crevice of stone and steel. Everywhere the pattern was the same: a massive spire, pumping, breathing, changing the air. And beneath it all, movement. The spores weren't just killing, they were seeding. Harris was sent back into the field with one goal: find out what was growing beneath the spires. He led a small team of masked soldiers into the resin crust that stretched for miles around the central tower. The ground was sticky, every step pulling at their boots as if the land itself tried to hold them back. Inside the resin valleys, they found shapes. Some were human, some machine, all encased in layers of translucent slime. Their bodies twitched, lungs rising and falling in slow rhythm, though their eyes were vacant. One soldier gagged inside his mask. "They're alive." Harris raised his rifle. Not for long, but before he could fire, the ground trembled. The soldiers froze, weapons drawn. The resin beneath their boots split apart like cracking ice, and something massive shifted below. A low, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. Then came the hiss, a wet, terrible exhalation from deep within the structure. The ground opened. Out crawled the first of them. Towering creatures, their bodies plated in chitin and sinew, dripping with slime. Their faces were a nightmare of ridged skulls and needle-like teeth. They moved with the precision of predators and the hunger of something newly born. The soldiers fired, bullets ripping into the creature's flesh, but the wounds closed as fast as they opened. Harris shouted for retreat, but already the air grew thick again, spores cascading down in suffocating clouds. His men dropped one by one, gasping inside their masks as the filters failed. Harris stumbled, vision blurring, lungs burning. The last thing he saw before the spores claimed him was the tower, pulsing, alive, and endless. Back in Colorado, Elena realized what was happening. "It's not just killing us," she whispered. "It's replacing us." The spores weren't designed to poison. They were designed to terraform, remaking the world in the image of something alien. Macklin demanded nuclear strikes. Warheads were launched. Mushroom clouds bloomed across the planet, firestorms sweeping entire cities. For a moment, humanity thought they might win. But when the smoke cleared, the towers still stood. Their flesh rippled with wounds, blackened and charred, but they healed. Faster this time. Stronger. The nukes had only fed them. Elena saw it first on the satellite feed, the clouds of spores spreading wider, carried by jet streams, blanketing continents. Cities vanished beneath haze. Oceans darkened. Even the poles weren't spared, ice turning black as spores sank into frozen water. Machines failed first. Power grids collapsed. Drones dropped. Tanks sat lifeless, their engines choked by living dust. Then came humanity. Millions suffocated in their sleep, lungs filled with invisible fog. The survivors wore masks, but the filters grew useless within hours. Some carved caves deep underground, but even there, the spores seeped in, finding every crack, every weakness. The atmosphere itself was no longer Earth's. It belonged to something else. And then came the birthing. The towers began to split open. From their fleshy chambers spilled creatures. Millions of them, smaller than the behemoths Harris had seen, but just as deadly. They swarmed across the dead cities, crawling through buildings, searching for anything that still drew breath. Every human they caught was dragged back into the resin, cocooned, seeded, transformed. Every machine was dissolved, its metal twisted into strange alloys that fused with alien bone. Elena, one of the last left alive in the mountain bunker, recorded her final message. Her voice was hoarse, but her words burned with clarity. This was never about conquest. It was never war. It was metamorphosis. The earth is not dying. It is becoming. Her lungs seized mid-sentence. Spores leaked through the vents, glittering like stars in the dark. She dropped the recorder, her vision dimming. In her final moments, she thought she saw movement beyond the glass, shapes shifting in the haze. Not human, not machine, something new, something born from both. The recorder kept running long after she was gone, capturing only the hiss of spores filling the room, the steady pulse of the towers outside, and the silence of a world surrendering to transformation. Above Earth, satellites kept watch, but even their feeds began to fail. Cameras clogged with spore dust. Solar panels dimmed beneath alien haze. The last image transmitted before total blackout showed the planet as a shadowed sphere wrapped in swirling clouds. Not of water or storm, but of spores. A living shroud. Blue Earth was no more. It had become a cradle, and in the silence of space, the spores drifted outward, carried by solar winds, seeds searching for the next world to claim.